Welcome to the channel, where today we unravel one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern American numismatics. What if a small mistake made it one of the rarest coins ever struck, a coin so riddled with errors, so cloaked in minting secrecy, and so wrapped in collector obsession that it defies every standard of production, quality, and reason, and that coin is the 1990 60-quarter dollar. A piece that should have been ordinary, forgettable, one of billions, yet instead has carved its place in whispered legend and investigative obsession, its every anomaly pulling the curious deeper into a rabbit hole of design inconsistencies, die clash echoes, and inexplicable mint marks that simply shouldn't be there. How did this coin, meant to symbolize nothing more than 25 cents of commerce, become a cipher for minting anomalies that suggest oversight at the highest levels of U.S. coinage production? As if the very machinery of the Denver Mint in 1996 had turned rogue for a day, or perhaps even longer, spawning quarters with planchet flaws so subtle yet so telling that only the most seasoned numismatists can identify their haunted traits, shadowed impressions where there should be clarity, phantom letters where initials ought to shine, misaligned strikes that render eagles with fragmented wings, obverse features slightly doubled or eerily elongated, raising the chilling question: was this an isolated error? Or a systemic lapse cloaked in bureaucratic silence, one that spawned a small handful of mutant coins before the presses were recalibrated, scrubbed, and silenced? And why do some of these quarters exhibit ghostly traces of dates within dates, as if one die had been repurposed from another era, or struck with such pressure variants that faint mirror-like echoes of earlier strikes still shimmer beneath the surface? What caused such inconsistencies to manifest in only a few known pieces while billions passed unnoticed? Collectors have whispered of quarters that seemed to bleed slightly at the edges, as though the metal wasn't right, wasn't whole, as though the coin was fighting its own identity from the moment it was forged. And then there are the tales of die trials that were never logged, never recorded, with striking characteristics that match no known standard and appear only in specimens rumored to have been found in distant rolls, in forgotten sock drawers, or slipped into circulation by insiders whose silence has only deepened the myth. Expert analyses conflict wildly. Some claim misaligned collar strikes or unreported die polishing led to these bizarre features, while others speak of ghost initials that seem to fade under light, as if half willed into existence and half erased by intention. And what of the conflicting stories from former Mint employees, whose recollections hint at a failed batch of experimental dies in early '96, supposedly destroyed, yet unverified? With whispers that a few managed to strike genuine quarters before being scrapped or hidden. Why have no formal statements been made, and why do confidential memos from that year allude to minor anomalies without specifying their nature? Every new discovery, a quarter with doubled Liberty lettering but no other distortions, or a coin whose Denver mintmark appears misaligned not just physically, but historically, bearing spacing inconsistent with any standard deplacement, only feeds the fire of fascination and fuels the belief that more pieces are out there, unrecognized, hiding in change jars, vending machines, forgotten piles of old currency, waiting for someone to notice the imperfection that unlocks a larger truth. Could the 1990 60-quarter represent not a singular error, but a series of covert missteps, a domino effect of production choices, overlooked corrections, or perhaps a deliberate test run for new engraving processes that went undocumented, leaving behind a cryptic trail of inconsistencies that have now become the holy grail for dedicated seekers? And as more collectors report strange finds, quarters with incomplete rims, coins bearing the faint outlines of non-existent design elements, or edges that reflect uneven reading, the frenzy only grows, pushing the community into late-night hunts and magnified examinations of coins once dismissed as mundane, until suddenly a peculiar curve, a warped eagle's beak, or a second serif on a number sparks a flurry of re-examination. How many of these coins exist? How many have been spent in ignorance? And how many more anomalies lie undiscovered in the clutter of daily life, slipping by unnoticed, each one a silent witness to a moment when the Mint, whether by error or intent, created something it could never fully explain? Each question unearths another, every clue twists the narrative tighter, every strange detail pulling us deeper into a story not just of flawed metal, but of obsession, secrecy, And the haunting possibility that the 1996 decoder is more than a coin. It is a cipher, an enigma left behind by a moment in minting history that may never be repeated, and one that continues to defy every effort to categorize, decode, or dismiss, pulling us ever closer to the realization that sometimes the most overlooked objects carry the greatest mysteries. Next, 1989 decoder dollar coin. Today, we're diving into the astonishing, unresolved mystery of the 1989 decoder dollar, a coin so deceptively ordinary at first glance, yet cloaked in controversy, legend, and unexplained anomalies that have haunted collectors and numismatists for decades. Because what if a small, nearly imperceptible mistake made it one of the rarest coins ever struck? Not through design, but through a cascade of silent errors, hidden oversights, and perhaps even deliberate concealment deep within the U.S. Mint itself. Picture this: it's 1989, a year of global upheaval, political shifts, and technological advances, and while the world turned its eyes to the fall of the Berlin Wall, something inexplicable was happening within the coining presses of the Denver Mint, obscured behind secured doors and metallic clatter. A series of minting events unfolded that would give birth to a handful of quarter dollars so anomalous, so drenched in irregularities, that they would evade official documentation entirely. And it all begins with an unassuming mintmark quarter, a coin meant to disappear into pocket change but which instead ignited a wildfire of obsession. Collectors who first stumbled upon these strange quarters noticed faint doubling on the obverse letters, ghostly impressions of Washington's profile beneath his primary bust, and in some cases, a missing or malformed mintmark. Some reported a phantom D so shallow and warped it appeared to dance when tilted, while others found what seemed like double Ds layered unnaturally close, as if two mintmarks had been applied during different strikes, and the story deepens with whispered reports of die clashes so severe that Liberty's letters mirrored into the reverse, barely legible beneath the eagle's talons, creating a disorienting effect that's yet to be replicated under controlled minting conditions. Theories spread like wildfire. Was it an experimental die trial, an unauthorized production test, or the result of a last-minute machinery swap when aging equipment failed unexpectedly under deadline pressure? And then came the most bizarre accounts of all, quarters where Washington's initials appeared to vanish entirely, as if erased with precision tools, while others bore shadowed devices, feigned outlines of shapes that didn't match any known die stage, pushing some experts to suggest the existence of confidential die prototypes, or even foreign planchets being accidentally introduced into the U.S. quarter run. Retired Mint employees, speaking under anonymity, hinted at overlooked quality control stages during 1989's late-year rush, citing unscheduled restrikes and die regrinds that were never formally logged. And somewhere along this chain of chaos, the 1989 decoder began to diverge from reality as we knew it, producing coins with slight thickness irregularities, slightly off-centered strikes, and on rare occasions, a reeded edge so imperfectly spaced it resembled older minting practices from decades earlier. Deep dives into government archives revealed redacted memos about coinage discrepancies in Q4 of 1989, while Freedom of Information requests yielded confusing data about quarterly production logs, some files referencing adjusted outputs that were later deleted without explanation. Meanwhile, collectors began to notice a disturbing pattern. Those who found one strange 1989 decoder often found more in the same region, especially in the Midwest, leading to rumors of an entire unrecorded batch distributed through a specific Fed Reserve shipment, possibly intended for testing and mistakenly released. Debates broke out among numismatic forums, split between believers in a rogue minting error and skeptics demanding scientific proof. But as more anomalous quarters surfaced, with impossible features like doubled edges, ghost images, or reverse designs partially shifted, those skeptics began to fall silent, replaced by a growing urgency to trace the origins of this quietly manufactured enigma. And with every coin examined, every microfeature scrutinized under high-powered microscopes revealing die fatigue, polishing inconsistencies, or unnatural toning patterns, the narrative has only grown more convoluted, with some experts now claiming that the 1989 decoder may be the byproduct of a scrapped minting experiment revived in secret. possibly to test die longevity on low-grade planchets or retooled hubs left over from previous decades. Others suggest sabotage, a rogue engraver introducing subtle changes to see if they'd go unnoticed, embedding his own cryptic signature into the national currency, a whisper of rebellion in metal form. And yet the most haunting part is not what we know, but what we still don't. How many are truly out there? How many went unnoticed and are still circulating, hiding in plain sight inside vending machines, parking meters, or coin jars across the country? This isn't just a story of a flawed coin. It's a story of obsession, of late-night hunts through bags of change, of collectors crossing state lines to chase rumors of a bank that might have received a strange roll in 1990, of mysterious eBay listings that vanish hours after posting, and of a U.S. Mint that has never acknowledged the full extent of what may have happened in that pivotal year. Every misalignment, every off-centered bust, every microscopic doubling on these coins is a breadcrumb in a trail that might lead to one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American numismatics. And the question remains, was the 1989 dequarter simply a mistake, an accident born of human error and overlooked oversight? Or is it a cipher for something far deeper, a coin that was never meant to exist, still whispering its secret to those patient enough to listen? Next, 1986 quarter dollar coin. Today we unravel one of the most haunting mysteries ever to emerge from the U.S. Mint, a story buried in metal, silence, and speculation, all centered around a seemingly ordinary piece of currency. The 1986 quarter dollar, a coin so riddled with bizarre anomalies, inexplicable details, and whispered legends that even seasoned numismatists question its origin. What if a small mistake made it one of the rarest coins ever struck, not because of its scarcity in numbers, but because of the secrets it seems to carry within its very surface? What began as a routine minting year in Philadelphia soon spiraled into quiet confusion, when inspectors noticed subtle deviations on some quarters, phantom outlines where none should be, devices appearing misaligned not once, but in near-identical patterns across separate finds, and most unsettling of all, mintmarks that behaved like ghosts, appearing inconsistently, disappearing entirely, or shifting position as if trying to escape detection, and though the mint never released an official statement acknowledging the anomalies, internal memos later obtained by private collectors hinted at a transitional strike incident and an unusual die replacement protocol. Language so vague and clinical it only fueled the obsession further, prompting underground networks of collectors to begin trading photos, dissecting die varieties, and even hiring forensic metallurgists to examine the composition of these rogue quarters, leading to revelations that shook the foundation of modern coinage history. Coins with doubling so fine it can only be seen under extreme magnification, yet forming consistent patterns that suggest intentional testing. Quarters with die clashes so violent that elements of both the obverse and reverse are ghosted across each other like spectral overlays. And perhaps most unsettling, the appearance of a planchet flaw that seems to mimic an unrecorded design element, as if part of a prototype never approved for circulation had somehow made it into the public sphere, a theory bolstered by a former Mint employee's anonymous letter describing unauthorized test strikes during a brief shift change in the spring of 1986, coinciding eerily with the earliest known specimens, and as collectors chased down leads, combed flea markets, and emptied coin rolls in search of more, the obsession deepened into something darker, with tales emerging of collectors who claimed to find a coin with no mintmark at all, or with one pressed so lightly it could only be seen when tilted at the perfect angle beneath UV light, raising chilling questions about the precision tools and deliberate calibration choices that might have been used. Was this the result of human error, sabotage, or a covert experiment in anti-counterfeit measures gone awry? And what does it mean that some of these coins exhibit a smooth edge, absent of reading, with microabrasions suggesting multiple strikes or repositioning in the collar die, errors so specific and rare that multiple experts have proposed the existence of a short-lived hybrid press used only during that year and never documented in official mint reports? And still, no two error coins are exactly alike, yet they echo each other, as though fragments of a larger, unspoken story, a story of lost die trials rumored to have been destroyed but possibly smuggled out, a story of confidential shipments rerouted due to quality concerns, during a week when multiple mint supervisors were reassigned without public explanation, a story of a coin that defies categorization, where even the Smithsonian has declined to comment on its anomalies, and where the American Numismatic Association has received over 24 conflicting reports from experts unable to agree on whether certain visible features are the result of flawed hubbing, dye fatigue, intentional alterations, or a new class of minting phenomenon entirely. And still, the discoveries continue, as a retired collector revealed a specimen with a raised impression beneath the outer cloud layer, showing what appears to be a partial reverse of an entirely different denomination, igniting speculation that multi-denomination dye testing occurred secretly at Philadelphia that year, a theory lent more credibility by a confidential document leaked online referring to inconclusive tests conducted on modified Type B reverses in early Q2, which, when combined with the unexplained presence of a shadowed Washington profile behind the normal bust on some coins, forms a pattern too intricate for chance. And through all of this, the questions multiply. How did these anomalies bypass standard quality control procedures? Why does the public documentation for 1986 show no records of these production errors? And what of the whisper network of collectors who claim to have seen a quarter with the designer's initials entirely missing, not worn off, but never struck, as though the die had been selectively polished, or perhaps intentionally altered, creating a ghost version of the design known only to a handful of experts? Could it be that these were never meant to circulate at all? That we are seeing the remnants of an aborted coinage experiment, and that every flawed quarter found is another breadcrumb in a trail towards something buried deeper in minting history than anyone expected, a time when automation was accelerating, oversight was fragmenting, and secrecy reigned over experimentation. Because if these coins were mistakes, why do they show such pattern and purpose? And if they were intentional, what were they trying to test, hide, or prepare for? This is more than a minting anomaly. It's a labyrinth of missteps, obsessions, hidden truths, and a relentless hunt for meaning that spans decades, drawing in those who chase not wealth, but understanding, who see in the 1986 P quarter not a coin, but a cipher, one that may still be solving itself with every new discovery, every unexplained marking, every quarter that slips unnoticed into your change, waiting to be seen for what it really is, a message from the heart of the mint, a fragment of forgotten ambition, or the shadow of something we were never meant to find. Next, 1983 D quarter dollar coin. Today, we plunge into one of the most baffling numismatic enigmas ever to escape the watchful eyes of the U.S. Mint, the 1983 D quarter dollar, a coin so riddled with unexplained anomalies and buried secrets that it's become a near mythic obsession for collectors, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike. What if a single, almost imperceptible slip in the minting process created not just an error, but an artifact, a ghost in the machinery of American currency production, so rare and so peculiar that even seasoned experts struggle to explain its origin? To understand how this seemingly ordinary quarter became a symbol of minting mystery, we must travel back to a turbulent time in the early 1980s, when the Denver Mint, already strained by budget cuts, outdated equipment, and an aggressive production schedule, found itself grappling with overlooked malfunctions and quality control blind spots that would quietly give birth to what many now call the phantom coin of 1983. Unlike any other of its kind, some specimens of this coin show sharply misaligned dies that created a distorted, almost spectral appearance, while others bear the faintest hint of doubled letters on Liberty, or eerie shadow impressions behind George Washington's profile that suggest a clash of dies not fully documented in official records, leading to speculation that rogue test strikes or unapproved trial pieces may have slipped into general circulation during the chaos of that year's production runs. Stories began to surface of coins with ghost-like mintmarks, hovering between a D and a void, of planchets that appeared to carry the wrong metallic composition altogether, as if someone had fed blanks meant for foreign currencies into the U.S. machines during a moment of confusion or subterfuge. And more bizarre still are tales of reverse designs featuring incompletely struck eagles, stars that seem to fade mid-ray, and faint doubling that no microscope can fully account for. As though these pieces were stamped by haunted dies operating outside the known calibration limits, rumors spiraled within the numismatic community, whispering of internal documents gone missing, mid-level mint employees who later disappeared from official employment records, and vague references in redacted government audits to incomplete disposal of defective inventory, all pointing toward the possibility that this quarter was part of an unauthorized batch whose purpose remains unexplained to this day. What began as a curiosity became a fixation, with seasoned collectors recalling the first time they held one and felt that telltale vibration of something off, as if the coin was imprinted not just with metal but with a story that couldn't quite be told, each surface detail inviting dozens of interpretations, from cold manufacturing error to deliberate concealment. Was the 1983 D-quarter part of a last-minute response to a minting emergency? A scramble to fulfill quotas using imperfect tooling, or was it the result of a secretive die trial, whose success or failure was never meant to reach the public eye? And what of the specimens that show no designer initials at all, where FG vanishes beneath the eagle's tail or appears to drift into the fields, while other coins bear impressions so faint they appear to have been ghost-struck, as if the die retracted before fully committing to the strike? How could such a wide variance of anomalies emerge from a single year and mint location, and why have some examples emerged only recently? Discovered in rolls that had remained untouched in bank vaults or private drawers for decades? We've uncovered testimonies from former mint contractors who describe breakdowns in machine calibration logs, inconsistencies in press pressure settings, and unexplained delays in die shipment manifests that all circle around that same fateful period in 1983, painting a portrait of a facility under strain, secrecy, and internal miscommunication. Could it be that a single employee, unknowingly or not, triggered a cascade of errors that minted history in the form of a flawed coin never meant to be seen? Or does the truth go deeper, involving systemic blind spots that allowed experimental dies to mix with general production lines, resulting in a cryptic blend of standard issue and forbidden prototype? There are theories that trace the anomaly back to a switch in die hardening techniques that year, which may have left micro-impressions on coin surfaces resembling faint die clashes or phantom features that defy cataloging, while others point to a rarely documented incident involving a press line override, allowing unapproved strikes to pass inspection entirely unnoticed. Collectors speak of the moment they found a coin with ghosted letters beneath the word quarter, as if the die held memories of a previous design, of pieces where Washington's eye appears doubled, staring out with an unnerving awareness, and of mintmarks that shimmer with the ambiguity of being both there and not there, challenging everything we thought we knew about how precision and error intersect inside the mints. High security walls. Every lead opens more questions. How many of these anomalies were known to mint officials, and how many were quietly buried in reports never made public? Was there an internal directive to minimize public knowledge of these errors to preserve the credibility of coinage? Or was the anomaly simply too elusive, too scattered across too few examples to be taken seriously at the time? And now, decades later, are we only just beginning to piece together a puzzle whose edges remain hidden, whose center is filled with speculation, obsession, and the whispered possibility that something extraordinary was accidentally born from a confluence of flawed machines, human oversight, and historical coincidence? The hunt continues, driven by passion and mystery, as collectors comb through rolls, estate sales, and forgotten jars, chasing the echo of an era that became legend, and all the while, the 1983 D-quarter watches silently from within velvet cases and dusty drawers, daring the world to solve its enigma, to explain the inexplicable, and to confront the chilling question at the heart of this journey: what if this coin was never supposed to exist, and what other secrets might still lie waiting, unnoticed, in the ordinary change we pass from hand to hand each day? Today, we take you deep into one of the most perplexing and shadow-draped mysteries to ever emerge from American coinage: the 1990 D-quarter dollar, a coin that, on the surface, appears like any other, yet beneath its worn ridges and faded luster hides a legend forged not by design, but by error, by secrecy, by the overlooked chaos of a minting process pushed to its limits. What if a small mistake made it one of the rarest coins ever struck, not because of what it was supposed to be, but because of what it became in spite of everything that should have prevented it. To understand how this ordinary-looking Denver minted quarter came to haunt the minds of collectors and historians alike, we must step back into a year where nothing was quite what it seemed, a year when the U.S. Mint, grappling with emerging automation technology, staff reductions, and cost-cutting directives, unwittingly opened the door to a chain of anomalies that would culminate in one of the most debated and least understood coins in modern numismatics. Something strange happened in 1990. And the 1990 D quarter is its silent witness. Production records from the Denver Mint show unusual gaps, inspection reports contradict each other, and a now infamous shift rotation log from late spring of that year remains curiously incomplete, all of which has fueled rumors that a critical mechanical failure, or worse, human intervention, created a batch of quarters that should have been scrapped but were instead circulated, and among them were pieces so distorted, so subtly corrupted by minting anomalies, that they've become the numismatic equivalent of urban legends. Stories began to surface in the early 2000s of collectors stumbling upon 1990 D quarters with shadowed devices, doubled edges, ghosted inscriptions, and most chillingly, coins bearing no trace of the designer's initials at all, as if the very identity of the coin's creator had been scrubbed away by some unseen force. Others reported strange shifts in lettering alignment, with United States of America floating upward as if gravity had reversed, and more alarming still, a series of documented coins showed the D mintmark oddly placed, tilted, or in some cases, vanishing into the coin's surface entirely. How could these inconsistencies slip past rigorous quality control in an era when every detail was supposedly monitored by increasingly precise technology? That question has haunted collectors for decades, and every answer only deepens the mystery. There are tales of die clashes so severe that outline impressions of the obverse design bled through to the reverse, and eyewitness accounts of quarters with doubled dies so delicate they could only be seen at a precise angle, under perfect light, as though the coin itself didn't want to give up its secrets easily. Rumors spread in the numismatic underground about a suppressed internal memo warning of an unauthorized batch of experimental dies that were never meant for general use, and a confidential report leaked years later described irregular strike patterns and unexplained planchet behavior, specifically tied to production lines in Denver during the late second quarter of 1990. What happened in those weeks that caused so many errors to cluster in such a narrow window of time? Some experts believe that a malfunction in the die installation process led to repeated misalignments, causing cascading distortions in multiple coin batches before the issue was quietly corrected, but others point to more sinister possibilities. What if these coins weren't just errors, but relics of a failed test, perhaps a transition metal trial, or a secret reverse design concept that was accidentally or deliberately released into circulation in small quantities before being buried by official silence? The theory of the lost die trial has gained traction with the discovery of several high-fidelity 1990 D quarters bearing unusual texturing patterns that suggest alternate planchet composition, yet no such trial was ever authorized, and the Mint has never acknowledged the presence of these variations. This refusal to confirm or deny has only intensified the hunt, driving collectors into deeper obsession as they seek out coins with the faint hallmarks of something off. A misplaced serif, a soft, struck eagle's wing, or a marginally thicker border that hints at a production anomaly invisible to the casual observer. One former Mint employee, who spoke on condition of anonymity, claimed there was an incident involving reverse dies accidentally striking a short run of coins before being caught and dismantled, but no official documentation of this event has ever surfaced. And the Mint's archived logs for that week remain inaccessible due to system migration, adding fuel to a fire already blazing with speculation. Among the most tantalizing discoveries are coins that seem to shimmer with ghost impressions, as if another image lies just beneath the surface, unseen by the naked eye yet undeniably present under specialized lighting, giving rise to wild theories that a hidden design, or a recalled commemorative template, was mistakenly installed into the press and later hastily withdrawn. Those who've held these coins describe a strange sensation, a tingling almost, as if the coin itself is aware of its error, of its uniqueness, of its burden to carry a story that was never supposed to be told, And so the legend of the 1990 D-quarter deepens, with every newly discovered specimen offering more questions than answers. Why do some coins appear to be struck on undersized planchets, with rim design nearly bleeding off the edge? How can one explain the presence of weakly struck mottos on some examples, where "In God We Trust" seems to hover between being and not being, like a whispered oath on a fogged mirror? What about the quarter found in a Washington estate's sale that featured a reverse design subtly rotated clockwise by nearly 10 degrees, a deviation so slight yet so precise it defied known alignment errors? That coin is now locked in private storage, its owner refusing to release high-resolution images until further metallurgical analysis can be conducted, citing concerns that it may represent a lost variant or even an early attempt at automated die rotation calibration gone wrong. And what does it say about the mint's internal oversight that such an array of anomalies could exist within 1 year, 1 mint, 1 denomination? Could the 1990 D-quarter represent the intersection of technological experimentation, bureaucratic oversight, and human fallibility all colliding at a single moment in minting history? The more we investigate, the more we uncover whispers of other unaccounted-for coins, fragments of alternate designs, strike tests performed at odd hours under unofficial supervision, even references in internal memos to phantom die IDs that never corresponded to approved tooling. This isn't just a story of flawed quarters, it's a labyrinthine journey through the very structure of the mint itself, a place where precision reigns but where mystery thrives in the margins, and where one overlooked coin may hold the key to understanding how thin the line is between a sanctioned artifact of national production and a rogue element that escaped through cracks in the system. And all of it centers on this one coin, the 1990 D-quarter, whose anomalies now stretch beyond what conventional minting error theory can explain, as if the coin exists not just outside the norm, but outside the expected boundaries of the process itself. What if this coin wasn't just minted by accident, but by consequence? The consequence of unseen hands, misread schematics, or perhaps even a test of protocols gone awry, leaving behind only metal, mystery, and a question that numismatics may never fully answer. How many of these coins are still out there, hiding in drawers, piggy banks, and forgotten coin rolls, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for and who understands that this isn't just about collecting. It's about uncovering a truth that was never meant to surface, about chasing the ghosts of history through the smallest and most unexpected of vessels, and asking yourself every time you pick up a quarter, could this be the one?